I mean, we've had God knows how many hundreds, maybe thousands of employees over the years, and all I ever tell anybody is that if you don't like what you're doing, quit.
Yep.
Stop. I watched my mom and my dad work for 35 years and hate every moment of it. And, you know, because they felt like they had to have a pension, they felt like they had to have something. And which is probably what drove me away from ever wanting to work for a company.
Yeah.
When you start or own or invest in a business, you did it for a reason. When you lose sight of that vision and that reason, you lose your business.
Mm-hmm.
It really is stick to why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Stop. You know, you didn't start a business to do marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't start, in other words, what you started, you didn't do it accounting, you didn't do it to do sales, you didn't do all these things. Hire people to do those things.
Yep.
And then do what you do best.
Yep.
The business can't help but survive and thrive, really.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmenthaler, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmenthaler, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risks you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through, those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
Welcome back to Venture Lounge, everybody. My name is Connor Sherman. I'm the creative director here. Nothing Venture, Nothing Change, fastest growing Palm Bay adjacent podcast in the world. We have Matt Helmenthaler, founder, in the house. Matt, say hi.
Hello.
And who we got on the couch with us, man?
This is my dear friend, Jim. I'm gonna maybe leave out his last name because he likes his privacy.
Right.
Exactly.
Mysterious man.
Travel incognito.
Yeah. So, Jim and I met.
I'm not a Gemini.
Oh, you're not a Gemini.
I'm a Leo.
You're a Leo. Jim the Leo. Jim the Leo, and I. Enunciation.
Right.
Enunciation. Very, very important. We actually met at a local restaurant that he owns. Again, I don't even know if I should say the name because you like your privacy.
Mysterious underground bourbon bunker. That's kind of where Jim spends most of his time.
That's right.
It's
Nobody
literally
knows where it is.
underground. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's his own little speakeasy. Yeah. It is amazing, though, how many people don't know about it, but all the right people do in most cases. It seems that way. When I go in there, like you're fully immersed by choice or not by choice. I'm thinking not by choice. You're surrounded by people wanting all different kinds of things from you all the time, including me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but we met at said place. I was invited to a bourbon tasting, and that's where I met Jim. He is very, very, very dialed into wines, bourbons, really all liquors, history and stuff like that. And so, yeah, he wowed us with stories and told us very complicated things about how this stuff is made. And then I started to frequent the place to buy my bourbon and just struck up some conversations with Jim and got to know him. So first, let me say, Jim is one of my most favorite human beings. And I don't say that lightly. He's what you see is what you get. Can we just say that is like rare?
Very much so.
Well, I mean, in general, people kind of just pretend and perform and just, whatever. But Jim's always been just straight up with me. If I'm an idiot, he's like, that's stupid.
It's hard to find people that just tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Jim
just tells you exactly what he thinks.
He is a truth teller, and I would say, 87% of the time he's spot on.
87%.
87%, which is high. I'm wrong at least 60-70% of the time. So, but yeah, no. So it's his friendship has been very meaningful to me. So I'm very glad that you're here today, Jim. But as we got to know each other, I told him kind of what we're doing here at Legacy. I think he's still trying to wrap his head around what we do, but because that's just I'm not good at communicating it, I don't think. But Jim shared with me his background as well, like not only like how he grew up and all of those things, but how he got into running a very successful hedge fund for many years, and the reason why I wanted him here today is because I've learned so many lessons, honestly, just, all jokes aside, just sitting across your table in your place. I've had some of the most meaningful conversations there in the last 2 years than I've had in my whole life. So, the nature of what we're doing for this podcast, I just thought, man, if Jim would be willing to come and just kind of share some of that wisdom and some of his stories and different things, that would be awesome.
And then a week later, Jim begrudgingly walks through the door and joins us, man. We're stoked about it.
Going on for a month of begging.
Yeah, that was I am persistent.
If nothing else, you're persistent.
I am persistent. Because I mean, honestly, seriously, from almost the day I met you, I'm like, hey, you should come get involved in what we're doing. I wore him down eventually.
Jim, you got to just lead us into what your background is in, man, and how you got to where you're at today.
That's a good question. I think I got lost somewhere along the way. I don't know. I grew up in a family that, I grew up here really in Brevard County. I grew up in Cocoa. My dad was in the Air Force. He moved here when I was 5. And, I went to Cocoa High School, begrudgingly. Supposed to go to Rockledge, but they built a new high school and I got to go there. Part of the first integration really in Brevard County was Cocoa High School. Taught me to be tough growing up in an environment like that. I grew up in a not so wealthy family, we'll leave it that way, but kind of grew up always working. I started when I was 6 years old with my dad delivering potato chips for Charles Chips, which out of Pennsylvania, but I always worked. My dad worked 6 days a week. So, his philosophy was, I brought you into this world to help me. So I had to work and I don't really know anything else. And that's kind of how I grew up. So I've always been involved in business since I was a kid. Mowed grass, started my own lawn mowing business, did all these crazy things as a kid growing up. And that's kind of how I got started in the business world. I had one job and I taught high school for a year and went so well. I was like, I got to do something else. So I left that and started something else, and it's kind of been on that way since.
I think there's some kind of connection between entrepreneurs and mowing grass. Like when that's like your first job. I just know so many affluent, successful people that started by like hustling and asking people to mow their yard, right?
100%. I did not know that about you. I did not know that you started off mowing grass.
But it was even worse. My dad made me mow the grass.
Hold on, though. Now, here's the question. This is the real test. Did you set the price, or did you just take whatever they would give you?
Set the price.
See, I did the opposite.
Well,
I knock on doors. I was in the 5th grade in Sarasota. I'm knocking on doors. Hey,
I was out. I was mowing our dirt. We didn't really have grass. There were weeds that grew up in it, and so I was out mowing the dirt and throwing rocks against the windows. And my dad would yell at me, and I'm like, "Then grow some grass, for God's sakes!" But our neighbors had grass, so he said, "Hey, would you mow my grass for me while I'm gone?" I said, "Sure, for $2." He said, "You're on." I'm like, well, then I just started going around the neighborhood. I'm like, hey, $2, I'll mow your grass. And then the guy who lived behind us, his daughter went to school with me. And I said, hey, your dad builds these small engines. Can I buy one of those lawnmowers that he sells out there? She goes, you ask him. He goes, I'll sell it to you for $20. I said, I only got 10. He goes, I'll loan you the difference. What do you mean loan me the difference? So every time I mowed a yard for $2, then I would pay off the lawnmower, and then that's how it all started. Then I built a little wagon behind my bike. I'm even 12 years old riding down Friday Road in Cocoa. For anybody who grew up in the area knows it was just a 2-lane cow road. I'm pulling 2 lawnmowers on a wagon behind my bike so I can mow.
This is awesome.
And so that's how it started. It's crazy.
So contrast that real quick, Jim, with what you did the majority of your career. What was the majority of your career, and what did that look like?
Majority of my career was managing money, which was, I went to Florida State, graduated from there in 1981, and I got a job teaching high school. I had a math degree and a math education degree, and taught high school for a year and hated it. They paid me a whopping $7,852, and for whatever reason, I remember that number to this day, because every time I looked at my paycheck, I'm going, what are you paying me? I made more mowing grass, which is why the education system struggles so much. We don't pay our teachers, but
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we value paying sanitation engineers more than we value the people who educate our children. I've never understood that, but that's just my own opinion. But so I went back to Florida State to work on my master's degree and started majoring in finance because I found it fascinating. And then a little company by the name of IDS Financial Services, which ultimately became American Express Financial Services, hired me as an independent contractor because I was a teacher. So they're like, hey, we like teachers. They make good salespeople. Like, I don't know how to sell. He goes, you do it every day in school. I said, well, he's probably right. But it was fun. I mean, and so I got started that way. I lasted a whopping 6 months with them as an independent contractor and left and started my own company. I mean, there's a lot behind all of that, but a lot of frustrations that came from working for people, which I've never been able to do. My wife, I told her one time I got offered a job at Transamerica to be their national sales manager. She's like, you know you're going to quit in 3 months. I said, what do you mean? She goes, you and working for people are not going to go hand in hand. So she was right, because I couldn't even play on the playground with more than 2 kids because I'd throw them out.
Where do you think all that mentality came from, Jim?
I don't know. I think growing up in an environment where, as I told Matt one time that I was in high school, I was playing baseball, and I was coming out of the shower, and the head coach comes over, and he goes, here, I got a present for you. And it was one of these like little chains, like they put dog tags on. He had taken a quarter and drilled through the quarter and put it on the chain. And I said, what is this for? He goes, as skinny as you are, if you fall down the drain one, it'll pull you back up. So I guess that was the...
Nice guy.
Well, I don't know. This phrase bullying that everybody throws around is interesting to me, but I think bullying is whatever it is, but I really still don't know what it is. But I do know that growing up, everybody was who they were. I mean, so like the kid who's the star quarterback on the football team still had his doubts.
Right.
So I think we all had our own doubts. So, and I think in my generation of growing up, it was proving ourselves.
Right.
Because I'm the baby boomer, part of the baby boomer generation. And I think that generation really did grow up trying to validate and prove who they were. And, some of the greatest entrepreneurs in history came out of that generation.
Yep. Mm. Yep. Yeah, I definitely see that. Just I'm thinking, because I was raised by a boomer. Two. Yeah, exactly. And I found myself always doing the same, always trying to prove myself. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. That's a...
Well, I mean, and then my dad, of course, was a depression baby. So his famous line to me was, eat everything on your plate because they're starving kids in China. And my philosophy was, well, box it up and send it to them. But... which didn't really go over well, but... And then he would also, so he'd always tell you that story. I lived in Cleveland, Ohio. When it snowed, I had to walk 6 miles to school uphill both ways in 6 feet of snow. And I was like, sorry.
We live in Cocoa Beach. Well, do you think, were there, for you, Jim, was it any specific mentor? I mean, obviously your experience played into your view of the world and your ambitions as an entrepreneur, but anything else you feel like led to some light bulb moments for you that helped you proceed in your career, or was it just hard knocks, the knowledge you got from the street?
I think it's some of that, but I also think it's just the first time you experience success at whatever level. I mean, it could be making an A in calculus class, or it could be, that you got to mow your first yard and then you actually went back and said, hey, I'm raising my price to $3 because gas prices have gone up. You gotta remember when I was a kid, the first gallon of gas I bought was 19.9 cents a gallon. When I got my driver's license, it was $23.09 to fill up your tank. I mean, so you're talking less than a quarter. So for $2.50, you buy 10 gallons of gas. I mean, so if I mowed one grass, that's how I started thinking, was each level of success. How do I pay for gas? How do I pay for my car? How do I pay for my insurance? I mean, I was self-sustaining and self-supporting by the time I was 15 years old. And so that little bit of success made me always feel like I can't fail. And even when I did fail, it just made me more determined to be successful. And success is defined by everybody at their own level. Some people use money. To me, it's doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And that is what success is. It's not about the money to me. It's about doing what I want to do every day.
I greatly respect that. I mean, this, something we stated pretty early on when we were doing deciding to do this podcast was this is not necessarily a podcast to like celebrate the rich and famous, right, or the whatever. It's about people who had a idea or a vision and they ventured out. They just said, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other and I'm going to get shit done and see where this path takes me, and all the lessons and all the things that you kind of learn along the way. What it sounds like, we've talked about this before too, is like there's a failing kind of forward, right? Like a very like, I failed and I learn, I go on, I move on. It's, there's a real danger when people like hit a ceiling. They just stay in the room sometimes and they don't.
And I agree wholeheartedly with that, but I think it's also finding your passion.
Yeah.
It's finding, and it's not necessarily your passion of what am I going to do every day, but it's your passion of how do you fall up.
Right.
I mean, a great story for me in business was when I went to work for IDS, they hand you a phone book and tell you to cold call. And this is how you're going to get your clients. And I'm like, I'm not doing that crap. I mean, I can remember this day being in Chaska, Minnesota. By the way, thankfully, they sent me there in January. And if you've ever been to Minnesota in January, I'm going to tell you the average temperature when I was there was minus 30. Wow. I'm from Florida. So talk about failing up. I have so many stories that it's just, I hate. If I bore you guys, just tell me to stop.
No, man, keep going, man, roll it.
So I fly up to Chaska, Minnesota. I land at the airport. I got my jacket, Florida jacket. And so we go over, and there's 4 people meet at the airport, and they're like, oh, we have a rental van for you guys to drive so you land in Minneapolis, you got to drive to Chaska. Well, that's like 18 miles away. So they're all like, we're tired, you drive. I don't want to drive. You drive. No, you drive. So there's an argument between 4 people who are literally 21 years old going, you drive. Now, when I'm thinking I'm 16, yeah, I'm driving. Now you're 21. I'm bored with that. Let's do something else. So they give me they go, you drive. So we walk out of the Hertz rental facility, got the keys in my hand, whoosh, 18 below zero, snow blowing in my face, and I got keys, and I lived in Florida my entire life. First time I ever saw snow was when it blew in my face in Chaska, Minnesota.
Wow.
So
man.
Driving down the highway, I'm like, I got this, man. This is cool. Get to the parking lot, and it's a downhill little thing. And all of a sudden, I'm pumping the brakes, and we're not stopping. And we're picking up speed. And I'm like, oh, that must be the learning facility. We're going to drive right into that thing. So thinking, how do you fail? Into a snowbank. Open the door. I'm like, we're here.
What did business look like there, man? Like, what were you in Minnesota for?
That was my training to get into the financial services business. They had a 2-week training class.
Okay.
So I had to go up there. So I learned there how to cold call. And they put you in the room, and they're like, hi, I'm Jim Farrish. I'm with IDS Financial Services. Do you have any investments? They would have this spiel that you would go through. Do you own CDs? Do you have this? You start giving them your little pitch, and you're sitting there. And after I'm like literally sitting in there with a guy who's in a training class, and he looks at me and he goes, that was excellent. I said, that is the dumbest thing I have ever done. He looks at me and he goes, well, you're gonna learn how to make it yours. No, that's not me. So I got back to Florida, and I lived in Tallahassee at the time, and I go to the office that they had and everything, and they hand you what they called orphan accounts, and you could call them, and then you could go see them. They gave you all these different things and lists of people who had called in and inquired information, and you're supposed to call them back. So I'm on the phone with these people, and I'm like, this is not me. So going to your point of failing up was I always failed up by saying, how can I change it to be me? How can I make this me? And so I was a teacher. So what did I do? I wrote a financial class, was on faculty at the time at Florida State University, went back to FSU, said I want to teach a finance class for adults under your adult ed program. And they said, we've never done that. I said, well, here we go. So we started it. It became the most successful adult ed course they ever had. I became one of the top producers for the company that they ever had. And from that, we started our own business and built it out of that.
Wow,
man. But it was failing by, I don't like this. So my failures have always been, I don't like this, let's find a better way to do this. You know, think outside the box. How do you borrow things from other industries and recreate it so that it's you? And so we ended up creating a company called Money Strategies Incorporated. We ran that company for 37 years, and it just was a great run. It was a lot of fun, but out of that came hundreds of other businesses that we were involved in. So it was just a great way to do it. I had a lot of fun, still have a lot of fun. I mean, you know, we joke about the mansion, but, you know, the mansion, I never wanted to be in the restaurant industry, but I did want to be in the liquor business. So I bought a liquor store that came with a restaurant.
So what was it when you bought it, and then like how did it progress to what it is now?
The people who started, Dean and Beth DiGiacinto started it in 2010. They bought the property from Bob Brown because he closed it in 2004. And it sat vacant. They remodeled it. They had a great vision. I mean, they did something that I think was fabulous, and they wanted to retire and move on. And at the time, we had tried to broker the sale for them through our company. That kind of failed through, so we decided to buy it. And reality was I wanted to own a liquor store, but our hedge fund owned it. I mean, they owned the property, they owned everything, and then I bought it from them.
I got you.
So it's been kind of a fun adventure for me. My wife's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm retiring.
Buying a restaurant.
Really? It doesn't look like you're retired. I am retired.
That's awesome.
But it's, so our dream was to build it to become like a spirits thing. And so we tried to build the sales side of it. But again, going back to failing but was just doing it differently, was how do we make it me? So we started teaching classes on how to learn about spirits, how to drink spirits, how to do that. So now I probably have one of the biggest followings for, you know, just tastings and teaching and education. And, you know, it's kind of grown from there. I've been invited to speak different places around the country on bourbons and tequilas and stuff like that. And it's just a passion that I like and enjoy.
Do you like being like in the middle of all, just like all these different kind of brews and bourbons and those kind of things? Do you like immediately feel like you can recognize what's a good bourbon and what's not at this point, or what's a good whiskey? I mean, what's your litmus test, Jim?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the reality is that you don't know until you try it. Everybody has a different palate, and everybody thinks differently. But it's like I tell people all the time, it's like, stop being judgmental about things. And, you know, I find that people judge things just by, oh, well, I don't like scotch. Really? How do you know? Well, I had it when I was in high school. You're 68 years old, dude. Might be time to get back on that bike. But, you know, it's like I tell people, if you don't keep trying, you're never going to find what you like. So it's like people who go, I see it at the mansion. People will come in and they'll eat the same thing every time they come in. I'm like, really, dude? We have like 60 things on the menu. There's something other than salmon.
That's me.
Matt.
Matt
But
does
it's
talk about
really
that black
good
and salmon a good bit.
Now, where's that salmon from again?
Scotland.
Scotland. Dude, by the way, how is that, the Scotch? Is that pretty good?
It's very good.
Oh, good. I'm glad
I
you
would
like
highly recommend it.
it. All right. Excellent.
So next time I'm over in Scotland, I'm going to pick some up.
All right. Frequent flyers. There we go. Frequent flyers, year 18.
It's got a little peat, little smoke,
Nice.
little
Nice.
burn.
That actually means a lot to me that you like it. Because I don't know, I'm just always seeking Jim's approval. But yeah. Anyway, so all right, so kind of like to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Connor's saying, or what Connor was asking about. Kind of going down that path. You took over the mansion, and I know that you guys your hedge fund. Clearly you weren't just doing like restaurants and real estate. So could you go into that a little bit and kind of like maybe just even talk to us about like what were the kind of things that you looked for? Because I mean while yes you were your own boss, you also had like a lot of it was a significant hedge fund, so you had a lot of people with very high expectations of you, and so that it still came with being the boss. Still comes with its own set of pressure, to some extent, I would imagine. And so what things did two-part question? How did you handle that pressure? And then also, what are the kind of things that you looked for as a successful hedge fund manager that you wanted to make sure your clients were involved with? Like what were like the indicators? Like, yes, that one's gold. Let's do that.
And just for the uninitiated too, Jim, like what is it that you were doing at money management?
Well, we, originally we started just managing money, just like anybody would, like at a Merrill Lynch or, back in the day, Dean Witter. The best part was they were all in Sears, so you could buy your stocks where you buy your socks.
Connor's like, what's Sears?
I've been in one Sears back in Ohio.
But we started just that traditional. But again, it's going back to people talk about this, the word find your passion, which kind of, I use it because I like to use it as a disclaimer of your passion is an evolution. Mm-hmm. You evolve into your passion. And if you don't like your job, define what you don't like about it and adjust. Mm-hmm. But I see people change their whole careers over the fact that they didn't like working at XYZ. When I was in high school, I worked at Publix. I hated it. Bagging groceries was not my idea of fun, especially for $1.35 an hour. Because I used to get $2 to mow grass.
Oh, man.
So the question was, how do you make more money? So I'm going to answer your question a long roundabout way, is that it always goes back to how you evolve to get there.
Yeah.
So how we ran our hedge fund started really by when I worked at Publix, so I figured out that Publix had a no tipping policy. I didn't really like that policy, but I couldn't change it. George Jenkins wouldn't let me change it. But I could change it because people would always say, here's a dime. I'm like, thank you. But I learned to say, we're not allowed to take this, but I appreciate the offer. Thank you very much.
Man,
Dude, I did that all the time. Publix, Albertsons. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So all of a sudden, I'm making $10, $12 an hour. Now, you got to remember, this is in 1973. I'm making $12 an hour in tips and hourly wages from Publix. So the store manager comes to me and he says, hey, Jim, we want you to work on the stock crew. Well, you're going to have to pay me about $12 an hour. We don't pay anybody that. Then I'm staying right where I am. And he and I used to go around and around about it. And he's like, he goes, I'm going to fire you. I said, that's fine, but there's a lot of people going to miss me. He's like, what do you mean? I said, the fire department, Miss Jones, Mr. Smith, all these people who come in that I bag their groceries every Saturday, take them to their car, put them in the trunk just the way they want them. Those are the people who call you and say, hey, he's a great employee. You need to keep him. Remember those guys? So I wasn't shy about protecting. I mean,
That's good, man.
the way
That's
I saw it was, if you fire me, I'm going to Winn-Dixie.
It's cutthroat out here in the bagging game, man. I'm telling you.
But long story short is I ended up working full time when I was in college for Publix. Between baseball and that, I paid for my college and graduated without any debt. And so again, to go back to the question is that how do we evaluate? The same way? You know, how do you make money? You make money by investing in things that are profitable.
Yeah.
And so, which is why we were talking about earlier that I have never invested in a startup company, probably never will. But I will invest in companies that have revenue, have management, do things the right way, that are growing their bottom line. And, you know, I tell people all the time, they're like, well, you started a company. I said, I really didn't start a company. I started what I already knew.
Right.
So I knew the financial services businesses. So I went out and, you know, I already had 200 clients.
Right.
So I could start my own company, take those 200 clients and grow their assets. But eventually what we found as it grew was it was boring. You know, buying AT&T with a 5% dividend and holding it for 30 years, and it wasn't my idea of investing. And I know Warren Buffett probably just threw up over that, but I throw up when he speaks, but that's okay.
If Warren ever starts to watch this show, I'm definitely thinking.
How do you, people used to ask me, how do you say what you say about Warren Buffett, and he's one of the wealthiest men in the world? I said, Warren Buffett trades on insider trading information, which is, by the way, illegal. And people are like, why, what do you mean? Do you not think that every company that he wants to invest in gives him every informational piece possible for him to invest $1 billion? And if you don't think they give it to him, you're only kidding yourself.
Jim, I heard the other day that the Pelosi's have a higher success rate with their investment than Warren Buffett did.
Who?
The Pelosi's, like where you know, like with that whole act.
That's because, well, there's no doubt.
What do you make of that, Jim? What do you make of that?
Get him rolling. Spin him up. Wind him up.
I can talk about them all. I mean, Jim Cramer wrote a book. He confessed in his book that he had insider trading information when he ran his hedge fund. You can't have that much money to invest that they don't tell you something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Fidelity. I've been to Fidelity many, many times, and I love people there. George Van Hart is one of my favorite portfolio managers of all time. You know, Peter Lynch was there when I was around. All those guys that paved the way. I went to Fidelity one time, and I'm in their boardroom and talking to some of their portfolio managers. I'm looking in the hallway, and there's like CEOs of American Airlines, Delta, all filing down the hallway. I'm like, why are they here? Oh, we're having we're having an investment conference. What do you think they're spilling in the conference room? You think Delta's going, oh yeah, we're gonna have a shitty quarter. Don't invest with us. We're gonna lose money this quarter. They're gonna say, hey, we need 30 new planes. We have access to this funding. We need more money to do this. Is it insider information? Theoretically, yes. Technically, no. But at the end of the day, money begets data. So if you have money, people bring you data. And so we went the other route. We started investing in real estate. We did development projects. We did a lot of things over the years, but we found ways to get out of just the mainstream. You know, one of my favorite things was to buy a piece of real estate and help small businesses own the real estate. So we would rent it to them, give them the right to buy it back from us in 3 years. We did a lot of things to help entrepreneurs. Restaurant owners, why do they fail? Why do they have such a high rate of failure? The reason is they don't own the real estate. If you go downtown right here, right now, outside of Meg's, who owns their property? You know, Matt's Casbah did, but they sold out to who? Right. Meg's.
Right, Meg's. Yep.
You know, so you go down, so if I'm renting my property, the property owner has the right to raise your rent when your lease is due. So there's 3 main variables in a restaurant that control the value: rent, food, labor. So if I give up control of food because commodity prices drive food, labor prices drive labor, and if I give up the control of the third piece, I now have no control of my business. So what am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels. So what are the most successful real estate? Why did McDonald's, Behind the Golden Arches, the book that was written by Ray Kroc, how did they get that? They bought the real estate. McDonald's became a multi-billion-dollar company because of real estate, not because of hamburgers. Hamburgers paid for the real estate.
Are we sure that they're actually hamburgers? They're actually meat?
They used
We're
to
not
be.
sure, actually.
When the McDonald's brothers owned it, it was.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but
that absolutely does, because it's that out of the box thinking. I think that is refreshing to our audience, the people that watch this. That out of the box thinking. I mean, really too. Like, it's what we do by and large, and our investors get involved in is, other than our processes that surround the company, which are great, it's still speculative investing, right? And so to your point, there is a warm and fuzzy about waiting until the company is performing before you, and watching the track record. And I absolutely get that. The thing that we're always trying to tell new members as they come in, and people that are thinking about getting involved in the angel world, is that to remember it is speculative investing. This is a small, in my opinion, I know you don't really dabble in it, but like, it's a small, little tiny piece of your portfolio. I think that their money should be more, the bulk of their money should be in their stuff that you're doing with the hedge fund, other types of things like that. And to me, this is what we do should be a very, very small piece of their actual portfolio. What do you think?
I mean, I get it and I understand it, but I think every entrepreneur should be required to read the EMyth by Michael Gerber.
Okay.
And because he said it better than I can say it, and I've used it every time someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Jim, I want to start a business." I hand them the book. I say, "Read the book, call me, and I'll talk to you. But if you don't read the book, I have nothing to say." Because Michael Gerber's philosophy was that entrepreneurs are nothing more than technicians that had an entrepreneurial seizure. Meaning that I'm a mechanic one day, I get pissed off at my boss, so I'm going to open my own shop. What did you do? You exchanged a job for a job. You didn't create anything. You just started a job. And, and it's like that process alone is, so if you want to be a mechanic and you want to own an auto mechanic shop, buy one that's working.
Yep.
Buy an existing shop that's got 4 bays, it's got a building, it's already running, and yes, you may have to pay $1.5, $2, $3 million for it, but it's a functioning business. I bought a functioning business. I didn't start the mansion.
Right.
Bob Brown started the mansion. He created that concept, and kudos to him for doing it because he did a great job. I bought a business that was functioning, had revenue, had profits, and had employees. All I had to do was figure out how to improve it. I'm really good at improving. So it goes back to knowing what you're good at.
Yeah.
I can take a business and I can spend 30 to 45 days in it. I will tell you how to either double revenue, drive them 30 to 40% higher. I will show you how to market, how to take that company and actually build it. And that was our forte. And that was what we knew how to do. And so for me to go out and say, hey, I'm going to start a software company. Sorry, I'm out. I don't really buy a whole lot of software. But
but similar to our efforts at Legacy, what your business focused on was developing the portfolio companies that you're a part of. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, we would actually even buy businesses and reorganize them and sell them. So we had a team that we would go in and say, all right, we're going to buy this, we're going to reorganize it, and we'll help you build your business. And we made more money doing that. But, I mean, come on. Let's all be honest. If what's-his-face came to you who started Uber and said, hey, I got a great idea, would go, oh, here's $1 million. I'd look at it and go, you're an idiot. Which I did, so I didn't own Uber. But Yahoo, on the other hand, I did buy Yahoo before it was an IPO. But I believed in the concept of the internet and where it was going and where search engines were headed. But the mistake Yahoo made was they didn't believe they could own that. Why? They got stuck in it. AOL, why are they not the dominant force out there today? How is Google the dominant component? How did that happen? It's going back to what I just said. There are businesses out there that are successful that don't have the vision.
Right.
I mean, Jeff Bezos had a vision.
Right.
And he built it. And, Microsoft, quasi-vision. We'll just go with, hey, I'm going to take DOS from you and I'll start my own software.
Take an existing
Kudos
business,
for
Jim. That's
buying
what
it.
you're talking
Yeah.
about.
I mean, it's what I said. I mean, I'm sorry I didn't think of it because I was programming DOS back when I was in college. I'm like, man, I should have done that.
Yeah, to your, I was just, I don't know why I thought of this story while you were, I don't know what you were saying. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Going on about something over here.
But there's over in the Vero area. One of my business partners, Maximilian, you met him. He's I think he's 1 inch taller than this giant. How does that make you feel, by the way? Is that awkward for you?
Second tallest at Legacy Angel Network. It's a real brag,
But he was a professor, a teacher, like yourself, right? And these two of his students had this really cool idea, and he saw them. They were excellent students. He knew he could continue to mentor and kind of help them through their idea, and so he seeded them their first $100,000. That company ended up being called a little company called Google.
Wow.
Right? So he's sitting over there doing very well off of his $100,000 investment and living the life. But to your point too, it like that dude, his reputation, you wouldn't know that it's him, that he has had that story, that background. His wife drives a minivan. He drives an old pickup truck. They have a big home for like gatherings that they'd never even go in, except that they just have they have a smaller home over here that's where they live on a daily basis. They're just super cool, down to earth, like humble people.
And you have to understand that there's nothing functionally superior. We were talking about this the other day. There's nothing functionally superior about an SUV, Jim. I mean, we all know this. It's like a shinier minivan. The minivan wins almost every time. Gas mileage.
It's true.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. We were talking about it. I still don't.
So
I'll
they know
take
what's
the
up.
SUV.
It's an efficiency kind of thing. Jim, when when you're talking about. So you have an astute vision and understanding of, hey, there's this existing business, and I feel like I can make it better. What is your process for vetting interesting companies, and what are you looking for as far as what you think will succeed, what can be made better, and what can you turn a profit on? Walk us through your process with that, because I feel like with every investor, it's different. Some investors are like, yeah, I'm going to take a chance. Here's some capital, and some investors I want to see every piece of financial data, every single number I want to grill you on. There's just there seems to be no right way to do it. I mean, you know what I mean?
There definitely is a right way, but yes.
Or
people are doing
methods
it.
vary so differently.
No. People are like, I got a good feeling,
right?
And then you have other people that are like, let me see the data room. Let me see all the for sure.
Where do you fall, Jim?
I have a math degree.
Right, you just believe in math.
I actually have two of them, and so that's probably answer for you. I'm the biggest analytic on the face of the earth.
That's awesome. Shocking.
I have an Excel spreadsheet on my computer, and I can take the numbers of any business and plug them in there, and I can tell you where the weakness of the business is, what the strength of the business is, and how to improve the business. And I can generally do it without ever having to talk to an employee or ever having to talk to the founder, because numbers don't lie. It's the old issue that when I took my first statistics class when I was at FSU, sitting there, the teacher walks in and he writes on the board, statistics don't lie, statisticians do. He said 4 out of 5 dentists do choose Crest, you just got to find them. So statistics do lie, but ratios do not. So if I were to take you to my office at the mansion and pull up the financials on the mansion, I can tell you where we make money, where we're marginally profitable, and I can tell you what we make per turn on a table, per turn in a parking space, per turn on everything. I can tell you when I buy a case of Old Forester 1910, what I make on it, and I can tell you how long it sits on the shelf. I can tell you who's buying it, and I can tell you how often I turn a case. And the reason I want to know all those things is when a vendor walks in and says, hey, Jim, you need another case of 1910. I said, yeah, I've only had that one for 11 months, and I made approximately a turn on my asset was about 1.8%. I can get that at the bank in a savings account. So everything to me it's number driven. And I tell all of our managers all the time, watch the numbers. Numbers don't lie. They, employees do. Employers do. I mean, so at the end of the day, it's about the numbers. So when you ask the question, what would I look at? I'm going to look at the numbers. There's, in the last 6 months, we've been offered to buy probably 30 different businesses. And all I ever ask for are the numbers. And when they send them, I'm like, can you have your accountant send me the official numbers that were filed with the IRS? And if they don't match, it's really easy because there was an example, it was a business that was for sale here locally. I started tearing apart the numbers, so I got the last 2 years' data, which weren't COVID driven. So I wanted the COVID numbers and I wanted the numbers prior to COVID, so I asked for tax returns going back to 2017. They didn't want to provide them. I said, I don't have any interest.
Yeah, that's a really easy way to sift through the noise, man, because you just people work off so many preconceived or so many it's just easy to just based on how you're feeling day to day tell people how your business is doing, and much easier to just abide by, or much easier to make decisions off of raw data,
It's interesting. I have people walk in the mansion all the time. They're like, how's business? I don't know why that's a question.
Yeah.
But it is a question.
I asked that question.
Well, but I tend to be a very private person about business. I don't really share a whole lot, but at the end of the day, because it's my business, it's what I want to do, and it's not a publicly traded company, so I'm not here to share data. But, it's like, and I always look at people, I go, lights are on, paychecks cleared the bank, they're cooking in the kitchen. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I love when people walk in, oh, your parking lot's full. You must be doing great tonight. You do understand we have a party of 60 upstairs, and all 60 of them drove their cars.
Yeah.
But that's just me being, I don't take too many things seriously. I mean, it's really, at the end of the day, it's about having fun. And going back to one of your points earlier is that some of the greatest successes that we had investing was really happenstance. I mean, it just being in the right place at the right time. And it's just like people who, honestly, some businesses succeed just because they were at the right time and at the right place. Mm-hmm. If you started that same business one city over, 2 years later, it would have flopped. Mm-hmm. And I think that we forget that happenstance it's there. It's karma.
Yeah.
And what you put out there comes back to you. But I got invited up to Washington, D.C. to do they had a roundtable panel to help the SEC about how things should be regulated with RIAs at the time, which are registered investment advisors. Mm-hmm. And so I felt privileged to be invited to go to it because I'm a stickler for laws and rules. I mean, everybody needs to play by the same rules. Don't reinvent them. And so I was up there, and I got a friend of mine called me that had started a little ETF company. Well, you got to think back. ETFs didn't really exist until 2010, 2008. They kind of started to bubble up, but really in 2000 they all started. So this guy was way early in the game, and it was a little company called Pro Funds, which today is one of the largest ETFs in the world. And so he started this company. He said, "Hey Jim, why don't you come out to Bethesda? we'll pay for your cab to come out. We want to show you around our building. So I get there, and literally I walk into this 40,000 square foot floor on a building, like a 30-story building, and they got a little corner over there with cubicles, and they're all working, and the rest of the floor is empty. I'm like, why do you have all this space? Oh, my buddy owns the building. He told us we can use it until somebody rents it. First of all, good sign of an entrepreneur. He's not paying any rent.
That's a calling card. For sure.
So I walk over, and he says, this is our think tank over here. And I'm like, so this guy was 68 years old. He was the head of the math department for Georgetown University. So he had taken a leave of absence, so he was a professor emeritus at Georgetown. So there's this group of guys sitting there. There's like 8 of them. I'm like, well, what do these guys do? He goes, those are my former students. I hired them. So they're all PhDs in mathematics from Georgetown. So brilliant think tank. I said, well, what do they do? He goes, they balance out derivatives every night. And at the end of so 5 minutes before the market closes, we balance out the derivatives and we balance our funds. So they were all leveraged mutual funds, 3 times leverage. So they're using 300% leverage on the assets. And so I'm like, can you show me how they do that? So he goes in his office, and he's got this, just like at Georgetown, he has this mark and white boards all around, but they were chalkboards. And so we go over there, and I said, all right, show me how to do this. He goes, all right. So he goes, I said, I have a math degree, so I think I can hang with you. He goes, all right, so we're going to take a derivative, and we're going to take this. So he starts going through this formula of the derivative, and by the time he gets done with this thing, he's 3 chalkboards down. And I'm like, and I go, Bill, I'm good. He goes, did I lose you? I said, way over here.
Chalkboard 2, yeah.
And he goes, but this is really cool. He goes, we figured out how to do this and how to hedge it and how to raise money to do it. So I actually changed my plane flight, stayed 2 days with this guy. He lives in Bethesda, lived right on the Bethesda Bay there. And so he goes, hey, let's go out and do some thinking. All right, cool. Well, out back, he's got a 60-foot sailboat with 3 masts. Like, Bill, I don't know how to sail, right? He goes, I got it. So we got sailing through the bay. We're out there for 3 or 4 hours, and we're talking about his concept and how he came up with it. And I said, Bill, what's your biggest problem? He goes, I got 2 partners that are idiots. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, they're the money behind it. I'm the brains. I need somebody to help me raise money. I said, I can do that for you. All of a sudden, I see the sails come down, and the boat's headed back to the dock. So he and I worked together helping raise money for them. So we went out and raised capital for them and helped them build their business by putting money into their funds, which our clients made a lot of money investing in. But it was just one of those things where how do you find things? Sometimes you just are in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And the mansion, I didn't set out to buy it. I lived in a condo over here on the river. My neighbor said, hey, the mansion wants to sell their business. I said, well, let's go talk to him. So I go over and talk to him. We have a conversation. One thing leads to another. And 7 years later, I'm sitting here and I still own it. But, and it's been a good investment for us, but it's also been a lot of fun. So I think that's, if you can make money and have fun, that's what it's all about. And then the latter part of your question, because I didn't forget your question. I'm pretty good at remembering things.
I know you are. Elephant over there.
Is that it's not always about making money. It's about building what makes you happy.
Yeah.
People define happiness in very different ways. And I have one of my best friends who was best man at my wedding. His famous saying was, Jim, money's not going to make you happy, but it'll make misery a lot more tolerable. And I used to walk around like,
I like that.
all right, I got you. And he's right. And I will give him that. And I do want that written on my tombstone, by the way. Okay. But I think
you heard it here.
Yeah.
But I do think at the end of the day, it's paying attention.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to what's around you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many people walk in the mansion that you wouldn't think they had 10 cents that are, as to the point of Max, that are multimillionaires, billionaires, and are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Right.
But
what does make you happy, Jim?
I'm just kidding.
Whiskey bourbon. I mean, it's certainly a joy.
By the way,
good
we
craft.
didn't toast in the beginning. Like
I
we normally
know.
do.
I mean, we're gonna have to refill and fix that.
Yeah, we got to do that. We got to do that.
I think that, for me, it comes down to just knowing that you're changing lives by providing jobs, by teaching people. One of our servers yesterday came in and he's shaking and talking to my daughter, who's our general manager, and he's like, I'm going to take a job, but my passion is wine. I want to go become a sommelier. And he goes, so I'm taking a job with a company. I'm going to do this. So I just sat there, and he finally looks at me. He goes, are you going to say anything? I said, what do you want me to say? He goes, are you upset? I said, dude, follow your dream.
Yeah.
It's your dream. It's not mine. We gave you an opportunity. You've done a lot here. I think that we helped you get to the point where you found what you wanted to do. Go do it.
Yeah.
And so he looks at me and he goes, so if I fail, can I come back? I said, no. He said, why? I said, because it's the wrong question. I said, you're assuming you're going to fail, and therefore you want a safety net to come back to. What I want you to do is go succeed and come back and say, can I be a somm on your staff? So teaching people, helping people has always been, but the teaching side of me always comes back.
Yeah.
It's teach, educate, train, help people be who they are. And that makes me happy every day. I mean, my family obviously is very important to me, but I have 4 daughters, and, my wife who has put up with me for over 30 years is,
That's what we should toast to Jim's wife.
everybody always does.
Four daughters, man. That's pretty awesome.
Well, when I got married, my best man and 3 other groomsmen took my future wife at that time, to the side, and they said, it's not too late. And it's like, you guys are awesome.
True friends. That's great.
We are who we are.
That's awesome.
But, life's about just having a good time. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And fun for everybody is different. And I think that, if I can sit in a room and be at peace, I know I'm happy.
That's good.
If I'm always looking for what I'm going to do next, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Jim, a through line I feel like I see in your story, and even you describing meeting your buddy Bill in that room, and him, pooling his 4 students with PhDs to start his new venture. And when people think of, because I have a design background, so very inundated with art and a lot of art history classes and those things growing up. And the definition of art isn't some lofty yet kind of abstract thing. It's really arranging existing elements to make something new. And I think there's a huge connection between the art world and making art and creating something and entrepreneurship. There's a large overlap. People don't traditionally think that you can make art with something like mathematics, but if the end goal is to like you keep saying, arrange these existing things that to start something completely new that gives people jobs and allows you to live on your own terms. I just feel like that is continually the method that you've taken to get to the point that you are now. I mean, I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think it's the same thing that people like Rick Rubin did when they combined Run DMC and Aerosmith's Walk This Way. It's the same. Started a whole new
awesome.
a whole new genre. You know what I mean? When people are starting new genres, or new ways to paint and those kind of things. It is really the same thing that's happening when you take your existing knowledge of mathematics and apply it to a new context. That's entrepreneurship, art and entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, how many people thought Bach was crazy? And unfortunately, most artists never achieve their success until they're dead.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me.
Right.
It's like I went to Champagne country, and one of the things that's part of Champagne country is cognac. So Louis the 13th, which a lot of people always talk about, Louis, well, Louis, when I was younger, was selling for $800-900 a bottle. Well, now it sells for almost $4,000 a bottle. But I always thought everybody got enamored with the $4,000. So we have a bottle of Louis in our package store, and people walk in and they go, "Oh, you got Louis." I said, "I'm going to ask you a simple question. What's in it?" They go, "Cognac." "How old is it?" They go, "I don't know." I said, "It's aged somewhere between 35 and 100 years. What that means is that the master distiller who made that bottle of cognac probably never saw it go into the bottle. So he bottled it with the dream of it being passed on to the next generation." And to me, that's what business is about, is passing something on to the next generation. Is that I have 4 daughters. Not one of my daughters ever wanted anything to do with our investment business. I would, like, "Hey, come down." I couldn't even get them to file. I mean, they're like, "I'm not going in there." And I think in some ways it was because they saw my wife and I running this business, and to them, I think in some ways it was what took away their parents instead of giving their parents, even though they had their parents all the time. I mean, we traveled with them, we did all kinds of things, but I think in some ways psychologically they got some of that. So we bought the mansion. All 4 of my daughters have worked there. I'm like, what is wrong with you guys?
Well, it feels like something you just can't control. Like whatever your kids end up doing, it may be something completely opposite of what, like.
Well, they're all different, but I mean, my 3rd daughter is our general manager. I mean, she runs it, and she gets it. And her husband is our executive chef.
Oh, wow.
So, which is why I run the liquor store.
I just wanted my kids to watch football with me. 3
That's
kids.
insufferable, Matt. You can't
Strike
put that
1,
on.
strike 2, strike 3. None of them watched football with me, and none of them like football. It didn't work out.
It's fun to watch them, but I don't know. It started same guy who was my best man at my wedding, who had a lot of good sayings. I started making money, and we had a nice home. Our kids went to private schools. We did all the things that I didn't get to do when I was a kid. And so I like, am I doing the wrong things? Am I doing the right things? And so he and I used to once a week we get together and have breakfast, and we talk about our lives and our kids and things that are going on, just sharing with each other as business owners. And one day he looked at me and he goes, "Jim," he goes, "you make enough money now, you need to create memories that your kids will never forget." And I was like, I don't know what that means. Buy them a car? Let them crash it? I mean, so he goes, "You determine what that is." So my wife and I agreed that twice a year we would take our kids somewhere in the world. So we flew to France, we flew to Italy. We took our kids all over the world. We took our kids skiing. We taught them how to snow ski, even though they live in Florida, because I didn't want their first impression to be 19 below zero minutes. They're going, So we went skiing first couple weeks of January, and 3 of my 4 daughters were there, and their significant others, and we were all sitting around the condo talking. So they started talking about trips and where they had been and all the things. And I was sitting there and I got tears in my eyes. My wife looked at me and she goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "Something that was told to me 30 years ago is playing out in front of me today."
Yeah, it's awesome.
Is create the memories with your kids and your family. And I've done it with my wife. I mean, we've done it our whole lives that we've been together, is just create memories that, and I'm not big on pictures, because I have like 8,000 of them on my phone. Most of them are bottles of bourbon, Just kidding.
No, you're not.
There are a few people on there.
Holding a bottle of bourbon.
But I was told by my dad, because back when I was a kid, we always took pictures of things. And, then you always had to take them down to the drugstore to get them developed. It wasn't like you could instantly look at what you just took. And you wait for 3 or 4 days, and you go back and get them, and you're looking at them, and you're all excited. Then you shove them in a drawer.
Yep.
And you never really looked at them. And so my dad says, why do you waste time taking pictures instead of learning how to remember what you did? Mm-hmm. So that's how I kind of done so many things in my life, is that I can remember pictures of things, but one last thing was on the topic of success. I always thought success to me, because I used to teach and travel all over the world, and I taught 300 of the Fortune 500 companies, their retirement companies, all these. So I thought the success to me was people are going to know who I am. So one day I'm in Boston, 34 years old, riding a T, hanging on, going to a Boston Red Sox game. Pack train, guy looks at me, goes, Jim? Like, who are you? I grew up here. I mean, and this is large compared to when I grew up here. Melbourne was 5,000 people when I was a kid. And so we're on this train, and I'm like, who are you? He goes, I went to a workshop that you taught in Seattle 5 years ago. It was awesome. So I'm hanging on to this thing, and there's a guy with me that had traveled with me, and he looks at me and he goes, do you know that guy? I said, no, but I'm successful.
That's awesome. You're a public figure. That's right.
I'm a legend in my own mind.
You are, man. You are. Congratulations on that. You made it, Jim.
I don't know. I made something.
That's awesome. So something that is I think that sometimes for people that know you, right? So there's people that know you and people that know of you and people that just initially kind of meet you. You might come across as
asshole.
Yeah, I mean maybe, cool. but here's the thing.
You just got to get through the multiple layers of irony.
Here's the deal.
Got to peel the onion back.
Because people have said to me, yeah, he's a really smart guy. Do you think that guy likes me?
Answer's no.
My answer to people is always the same. He is kind. He is honest. If you don't want to hear the truth, don't talk to Jim. He's the kind of man, he's going to tell you what he thinks. He's not going to hold anything back. He'll be fully known with you to the extent that you want to be fully known with anybody. But you'll just be an honest guy. Jim, I can just tell you, I appreciate you. I appreciate who you are, your heart. You're more mushy inside than people realize. But honestly, your intentions for your family, this community, for the businesses here have always been 100. So I'm grateful to know you and to have you as a friend, and I'm glad that you came on here today. So any parting words of wisdom for, we have entrepreneurs that are watching this, we have investors that watch this, we have people that, I don't know, just think Connor's beautiful that watch this.
Of course.
But including his wife, who don't mess with Connor, that she will destroy you. But just any, what are some things that you just live by? Some little, is there a saying? Is there something you could just kind of leave our audience with and just, you've left them with a lot already, but any words of advice?
Not really. I basically have told we've had God knows how many hundreds, maybe thousands of employees over the years, and all I ever tell anybody is that if you don't like what you're doing, quit.
Yep.
Stop. I watched my mom and my dad work for 35 years and hate every moment of it. Mm. And because they felt like they had to have a pension. They felt like they had to have something. And which is probably what drove me away from ever wanting to work for a company.
Yeah.
But I guess in a way I do work for a company, but I think that one thing I've learned is that when you start or own or invest in a business, you did it for a reason. When you lose sight of that vision and that reason, you lose your business.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is that, we haven't talked about it, but there's a reason that you started this.
Yeah.
If you're doing things other than why that one thing,
Yeah.
you're going to lose your business because you're going to get frustrated. And too many businesses allow the manure to rule them.
Yeah.
So for me, I bought the mansion because I wanted to own a liquor store. So where do I spend 98% of my time? In the liquor store.
Yep.
I don't run the restaurant. I hire people to do that. I don't order food. I hire someone to do that. I don't do the books. I hired my wife to do that. Had to have someone I could trust.
That'll do it, man. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But hire people to do the little things. Do the one thing that you started the business for.
Yep.
And if that's for you, for bringing people into the network and showing them the vision of the community, stop doing everything else.
Yeah.
If you started your business because of the one thing you enjoy, the art, do it. Hire other people to do the other parts. Yeah. Because if you aren't spending 95% of your time doing what you love, you're going to grow to hate it. Mm-hmm. Which is why I lasted 37 years in the investment business. And it's why I still do it. I mean, you've walked in over there. I mean, every Wednesday night we teach an investment class that people can just come in whenever they want, and we talk about the markets and invest. Now they come by 4 or 5 days a week and sit down and trade the markets, and they're like, well, how do you know this? I spent 40 years doing this.
Right.
It's not like I just went out and said, hey, I read a book. Here's how it works. I mean... But I guess that's a long-winded answer to your question.
That's a perfect answer.
It really is stick to why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Stop. You didn't start a business to do marketing. Mm-mm. You didn't start. In other words, what you started, you didn't do it accounting. You didn't do it to do sales. You didn't do all these things. Hire people to do those things.
Yep.
And then do what you do best.
Yep.
The business can't help but survive and thrive, really.
Yeah.
And that's why I Tomahawk, which is one of the new startups around here.
Great company.
That's one of the questions. Some days I feel like I want to pull into the parking lot and walk in now that they have more employees and ask the founders, are you doing what you started out to do, or does the business now own you? Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge.
Yeah, that is a challenge.
Jeff Bezos never lost the dream of why he did it.
Yeah.
That's why Amazon grew. Jeff Bezos hired people to do all the other piece. He hired programmers. He hired all those people to do the things. He always stuck to the one original thought, was that he wanted to be the number one retail outlet, and that's how he spent his time.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, one of my favorite entrepreneurs of all time. That's if you are bored and want to read a good book, read a book called One Thing. And it's about Steve Jobs. Read Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs did one thing. He grew Apple.
Yep.
And when they took it away from him, he found a way to take that same thing, go to Pixar, and recreate Pixar in a way that they couldn't imagine. Mm. And then he finagled his way back into Apple and built the largest publicly traded company in the world. And Steve Jobs never paid himself during the entire time, the second entry in there. All he took back was stock, and he also never took a salary from Pixar.
Wow.
He followed his dream, he lived his dream, and he died doing it. Mm. But he touched how many people in that?
Wow.
But
I didn't know that.
And he's a great story, and as you can tell, I read a lot.
Yeah, you do. It's awesome.
So,
well, Jim, man, we appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Anytime.
And, you said anytime. You said anytime. So we're going to have you back. We're going to get you on the counter. I know how much you love this.
I don't have any stories. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right.
Thank you.
Local legend. Appreciate you, Jim. Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Hold on. We gotta at least clink.
Cheers.
There it is, brother.
Jim, everyone.